Jared Poland, Fronos Photo.com here with part 2 of the emergency phone call with Adam, except he's still got tattoos on his hands. But the emergency part is over. He made it through his photo shoot with his, bought a D3100 one day and used it the same night to have a photo shoot with a friend. And now we're going to figure out how everything went and see if there are other questions. So first off, how did it go?
It went surprisingly well, especially with the little knowledge that I have about photography. But I lit everything just like I would light for painting from life, and everything looked perfect. And then when I got behind the lens, everything that you told me worked. I did not use a tripod, and I only had maybe 2 out of 100 photos that were a little blurry. So I feel that's pretty successful, especially for an amateur.
Yeah, how did you do your focus? What were you on focus mode-wise? AFC, continuous, or AF single?
I did a single.
Good. You understand what single does?
Not exactly, but I felt like that was probably the right thing to do.
All right, well, this is what single AF single means. It means that you focus and you hear the beep. Did you hear the beep?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that means that it is locked in focus. And when you hear the beep, that means focus is locked. And if you move the camera at all, as long as your finger is halfway pressed down on the button, focus will not shift. But if your subject moves while you already locked in focus, you're going to want to refocus because they moved and they could be out of focus.
Yeah.
Continuous means that if somebody's running across a screen or across a field or something, and your finger's pressed halfway down, it's going to continually follow them as you hold the button halfway down. So single was a good choice. Single is what I recommend for shooting portraits and objects that are not moving.
Then that makes perfect sense why I would do that.
And where did you focus these photos? Because usually I say focus on the eyes.
Well, the portrait is more of a derriere.
Right.
And
here, let me say something. Let me interrupt you. We're not
Sure.
actually going to show any of the photos that were taken. When Adam finishes the paintings, you will be more than welcome to check out the finished products of the paintings over there. But I just thought it would be better off that we just discuss the photos as to not really. There's really no need to post them because this
Absolutely.
is more of an educational thing to figure out what settings were there and what questions and to learn from. So maybe another time with a different subject and a different subject matter, we'll have some sample photos.
Yeah, I agree 100%, and I don't like to release photos of my models anyway.
Yeah.
And I thank all your followers, by the way, for checking out my website. That was very cool of you all.
Oh, that's some good stuff on there. So what questions were brought up now that you've had a shoot with the camera?
I wasn't sure if it's better to shoot in low light or in bright light and adjust the settings as thus. But after I did the shoot, I noticed that when I used the very bright spotlight, and the way I saw it in my eyes was beautiful, but the lens picked up so much more than I could ever imagine. Some of the photos looked almost dreamy, where I guess very noir. So it almost seemed like there was a vignette around the edge of the photograph by just using the spotlight.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that was possible.
Well, so basically what was being picked up, the bright area in the middle was being exposed properly, and everything around the outside was probably dark.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and that was perfect. It's exactly what I wanted.
Well, if that's what you were going for, then that's great. That's just where the light is, and it's what happens when you're I'm trying to find the words here because I just lost my train real quick. Well, it may look good to your eyes, but cameras are totally going to see it differently. And depending on the difference between the bright area and the dark area, the camera's not going to pick up the same thing that your eye is going to pick up because your eye is more sensitive.
Now, one question that I have that this left me wanting to learn more about is color. I noticed that when I was editing my photos, I was having to bump up the saturation and the vibrance to get the color that I wanted. And I want to know how to do that in camera on the shoot first and foremost, so I don't have to rely so much on post.
All right, well, I'll explain this. First, you were shooting RAW. When you're shooting RAW, there are no corrections added to your photos because it's the raw data, which gives you a starting point to make all the corrections later. The reason you had trouble with color initially is because you were shooting in a bathtub in a dark situation, and usually in low light situations there's not a lot of color, right? So that's probably why you had to bump it a little bit. Some of those photos that you took, you probably could have gone black and white, because when you lack color, black and white goes really, really well. But I know what you're saying, and when you shoot RAW, none of the corrections that are made in the camera actually affect the RAW file. You get a base starting point so that you can tweak those files later and get it to where you want it to be. You have full control over it.
Yes, and I need to learn more about that fancy Lightroom program that I got myself. Yeah. But I feel 10 times more confident that I just went in and did it manual. It was the first time I've ever shot manual in my life on any camera. Right. And, I did take notes from our last session and just referred back to it. I had to shoot on the fly a lot because she was moving around in the tub, and I wanted to, I'd have to say, oh, stop, that's what I want exactly. And I think I'm used to directing models when it comes to being on stage and standing still, to do drawings and whatnot. But with a camera, it's so very different because it's instantaneous. And whereas when I'm drawing and painting, I'm having them hold that pose for hours.
Sure.
So this was really, really neat experience for me.
Yeah, what I tend to do during a shoot is I let the model do their moving. I let them do what they want to do. But if I see something, even if it's a candid shoot of whatever I'm doing, I just hold that. Hold that for a minute, and then you get it, and you capture it, and then you move on to the next thing. But I like to let, instead of directing the model all the time, let the model just do their thing and move around, because they're going to create some things that you wouldn't have thought of, and then when you see it as a photographer, the camera should be up to your eye, ready to go, and then that's when you say, hold it, get it, boom, or just get it on the fly. And that's definitely something I recommend. Make sure the camera's ready to go when you are, talking to them, because if the camera's down at your neck, you're not going to actually be ready for that photo, and you're going to miss it. Now, you showed me one or two, right? Mm-hmm. I saw your feet in the photos. Now, yes. Now, being that I don't crop, and it's a totally different thing, obviously you want to try not to get your feet in the photos. I can tell that it was a tough situation standing on the bathtub, literally. Above.
Trying to get a bird's eye view.
So just, it is what it is. That's just something I noticed out of all of that.
That's the beautiful thing about being a painter, is that these photos, like I said from the get-go, are reference only. Mm-hmm. So when I go and paint the image, I don't have to paint my feet, and I don't have to crop or do anything. I do that in my mind and on the canvas.
Yeah, let me ask you something. So you said that manual was really, really easy. Now, if we didn't have this little discussion, do you think you would have been in auto trying to make it happen?
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. If I hadn't had a lesson from you, there's no way I would have known what any of those things did.
Yeah, and that's what's insane about it. Manual is not that hard. I mean, if you're afraid to get out of auto, you're just setting yourself back over time. It's going to take you much longer to do it. And now, I'll be honest, I was in auto for a while when I first started at 13. I was shooting with the sports mode and all the little people modes, because nobody told me about aperture priority or shutter priority, which are considered manual modes and very good modes for you to use. But I still think that simple tip where we actually use the back of the screen to our advantage, like it was a Polaroid back in the day, is pretty good. How far off were they when you got them into Lightroom? Like, did you have to change the exposure very much to get it to where you needed it?
Just a couple notches, quite frankly. I was surprised, and especially the few photos that I did send you, when you made that comment, hey, not bad, that I kind of gave myself a pat on the shoulder. I really was expecting much worse photos than what I got.
Listen, what I saw, one of the major, there's two things that there's a lot of things that I really, really look at for when a photographer's shooting. Composition is key, and you definitely have a leg up over many, many people for composition, because you understand it through painting. You understand angles. You said it to me, I don't know if it was in the last video or when we spoke, that you don't like using flash because it's flat. And then I said to you, well, that's because it's on camera. As soon as you move it off camera, you now create some dimension, and dimension creates the shadows, and it creates interest. And
Yes.
you know, you understand all of that stuff. And the second thing is focus. And I noticed that everything was sharp. In this case, it wasn't her face, but it was sharp.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, that's what I look for. Focus is key to me, and I'm not a big fan of, you know, if you miss and you say, well, I was trying to get it out of focus and all of this stuff. To me, that's just a way to say that you missed your focus. And it's all right to miss your focus. Just try to learn from it and get everything tack sharp.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I've got a brand new shiny tool in my big toolbox for creating art. And after our first video, I got a lot of comments from my fellow artist friends who paint and draw, and said, wow, I'm surprised you admitted to painting from photographs. And then I reminded them that even the masters did. Even Raphael, Michelangelo, they all painted from photographs.
What about Splinter?
It's called camera obscura.
What about Splinter?
Splinter, who's that?
You named all the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Ah!
But you just mentioned camera obscura. That's a
Yes.
great reference right there. Why don't you explain that for everybody?
Well, camera obscura was a way where, say, a portrait artist like myself, back in the day when cameras weren't available, there was a special type of lens.
We're talking early 1800s.
Very, very early, yeah. And they would put their subjects behind this curtain in the way they set it up, and the light would travel through this little lens and refract onto the canvas or the paper, whatever he had set up.
Upside down.
Upside down. And he would draw and trace to get the proportions exactly. And that's why a lot of people who don't know art are always amazed at the artist's ability to nail the proportions of a human figure back in those days. But it was really just tracing. It's
Sure,
the same thing.
And camera obscura turned into, let's expose a piece of paper or chemicals to paper or plates or whatever, and photography was born from that. But yeah, that's what I read that in the history of photography book that I've had that's really old, and it's really, really fascinating to see how they used to do this.
Yeah. It was one of my first lessons when I was in art school, how they went and did that, to demystify all of these fantastic artists.
Sure.
And to give a young artist some confidence to be able to attempt anything.
Now let me ask you something about art school. Now,
Sure.
Did any of the professors or teachers or whatever, did they ever speak in definitives? Like, you must do this. You have to do this. This is the way it's done. These are the rules, and they're not meant to be broken. Did you have teachers?
Oh, I had many teachers like that. I was trained in the academy style of art school, which, you have the Academy of Art, the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts, Beaux Arts in France. I'm sure I pronounced that wrong. But where everything was this. You must do it this way, and this way. And you had to learn it that way and produce that way. And the good artists, and they wouldn't tell you this, but the good artists would always question authority and break the rules once they understood the rules.
That's the key right there, is once you understand these rules, and I say it all the time on the website, is there are no definitives. There is no right or wrong way to do this. There's better ways to do it, the ways that seem to work, but that doesn't mean that it's the only way to do it. But really, you learn the rules, and then you make the rules up, then you do whatever you want.
Oh, absolutely.
But there's a reason that a lot of the rules are there, because you'll notice that you'll do weird things, like cut somebody's head off in a weird place, and you may think it's good, but aesthetically, most people are going to not be drawn to that image because it doesn't look compelling.
Right.
So.
Well, I mean, I imagine there's some lenses, I don't know much, but that will skew proportions, like fish eyes or whatnot. Well, in art, when you're doing figure drawing or painting, we learn that there are 7 to 8 heads to a human body. So that means a human is 8 heads. So you take this and measure it 8 times, and that's the size of a normal human.
A human head weighs 8 pounds, by the way.
Go figure.
Stephen Licknicki?
Say what?
I think the kid's name was Stephen Licknicki who said that. From Jerry Maguire.
Never saw it.
Oh boy, you were busy back then.
But in any event, I was getting to the point where somebody at some point decided to break that rule and do 9 heads to a human. And you know what happened out of that?
What?
Comic books.
Oh.
Comic book heroes. And that's why comic characters look
they're so long.
massive. Yes. And so there's a rule that was broken. And I imagine in photography you can break all sorts of rules and get amazing effects.
Sure. Well, what's next up for you as we wrap this up for photography? What's the next step for you with your camera?
With my I can't wait to shoot more and more people. I have lined up another 12 models over the course of 6 months to shoot, quite frankly. So
you're going to be busy, buddy.
I'm very, very busy. So every 2 weeks I should be shooting a new model and having a new painting ready. Of course, I'm sure I will ask you for more advice here and there, and hopefully you'll be able to join me on a shoot when you can.
Well, I wanted to say, I wanted more so than joining you on a shoot, being that I won't be able to show those videos anyway.
Yeah.
I want to actually, like I've said for a long time, is come in there. We'll do a 5-minute quote unquote portrait session that will probably be about 60 minutes, about an hour's worth of you painting, and just have me go around the room shooting pictures of you candidly, probably put a microphone on you, and we'll just talk. And that's my favorite thing. It's like an interview / photo session / learning environment, and I want to just candidly shoot photos.
Oh, that'd be great. I can show you how quickly I cover a canvas, and we can show you right from the beginning. If you want to do a first layer, or we can show you right towards the end. Maybe your followers will choose to pick if they want to see the beginning or the end of a painting.
All right. Sounds good to me. How long does a normal painting take?
It depends on my focus. If I am very clear-minded and in a good space, I can knock out a 24 by 36 painting in about 4 or 5 hours.
I got an idea for you.
Okay.
This is going to take some work for you. It's going to be interesting, though.
All right.
You're going to set up your tripod with your D3100.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to need to make sure your battery's charged, or actually have an extra battery, or possibly consider getting an AC adapter, because I think I wondered if they did that. They do. I'm not sure if they make one for that camera, but if you get an extra battery, you shoot. Okay, so the idea is literally start to finish your painting. You get 10 minutes. Now that means you're going to have to push the button every 10 minutes to start it over, but by the end, when we cut it all together and speed it up, your painting comes to life.
Oh, that sounds really neat. I would love to see that. I bet you I could learn a thing or two about how I approach paintings, because sometimes when I'm sure you and many other artists like me experience this, but when you're in the zone, so to speak, everything else in the world disappears, and you just become a conduit for whatever it is that you're creating.
Sure.
And you're not even aware of yourself or your surroundings. You're just purely focused, and that's really when I create my best work.
Yeah, and the other way you could do it is I have to check to see if you have an intervalometer in that camera. You could literally set it to take a picture every 30 seconds or so, and then by the end you just have stop motion every 30 seconds, and that may be a better idea than just wasting all the space on video. We'll see if there's an intervalometer to do that, or we could rig up a trigger release from your foot. You can just step on it every time you want to take a picture, and it will take a picture.
Well, you and your followers are always welcome in my painting studio.
Well, I can't wait, and I'm glad your shoot went well. I hope this helped you out, version 2, and we'll continue helping you as you progress as a photographer.
Thank you so much.
All right, Adam. You guys can check out scratchandpaint.com for the latest in Adam's paintings, and check out the new series that he is working on. Adam, thank you one more time.
Thank you, Jared. You're wonderful.
Thank you. Jared Poland, FroKnowsPhoto.com. See ya.